Unveil 21 spine-chilling tales to haunt your dreams. 3 hours of sinister rain secrets exposed. Sarah's heart thudded against her ribcage as she stepped from the diner's flickering neon glow into the grasp of the night. Another relentless shift had left her bones aching, but it wasn't the exhaustion that gnawed at her now. It was the storm brewing in the distance. Clouds loomed like grim harbingers, murmuring terrible things, reflecting the decay of her small suburban neighborhood. She hurried home, shivering against the wind's biting touch and the ominous patter of raindrops that soon drummed relentlessly on her head. The familiar streets felt foreign, shadows spreading and multiplying as the rain soaked her clothes, chilling her to the bone. She remembered brighter days, the sounds of laughter from neighbors, the inviting smell of pie cooling on windowsills. Now, homes sagged like forgotten relics, their paint peeling like old memories fading into nothingness. As Sarah pushed open her front door, the atmosphere was thick with despair. In the dim light of their sparsely furnished living room, she heard an unsettling noise, a low creaking that sounded almost like whispers twisting through the air. Shadows danced across the walls, contorting as if alive. "What's wrong with me?" she muttered, forcing her mind to dismiss the damp darkness that clung to her. The rain tapped above like desperate fingers, each soft, pleading sound touching on her deep-rooted fears. Inside, the only living warmth belonged to Laura, her 16-year-old daughter, who had become engulfed in bizarre local legends circulating on social media. "It's just stories," Sarah told herself. But the way Laura recounted tales of a creature lurking in their neighborhood, a being that thrived on fear and betrayal, made her stomach twist. Each story was woven with a chilling certainty that gripped Sarah's heart. Before she could shake off her apprehension, she stumbled upon a dusty drawer filled with neglected keepsakes. Among the clutter, an old newspaper clipping caught her eye. Her breath hitched as she read the headline: "Missing children found, neighbors shocked." The report featured Mr. Hargrove, the kindly man who had once offered her a cup of sugar and a listening ear. She grimaced, reality jarring at the edges of her mind, where friendly facades crumbled to reveal sinister truths. Just as panic settled, she confronted Hargrove beneath the dim light of street lamps, his courteous smile turning disarming. "We all have our ghosts, don't we?" he said. The smile didn't reach his eyes. With each syllable, fear slithered into Sarah's heart. The chill of despair gnawed at her, and when she contacted local authorities, they dismissed her worries, attributing them to exhaustion, to the burden of single motherhood. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. That night, as slashing rain drummed against the roof, Laura whispered about the chained one, the entity that feasted on despair. "Mom." As the rain falls it gets closer, her voice trembled with each word. Sarah felt rocks settle in her stomach as she faced darkness just beyond their door. Each raindrop felt like a pulse, summoning something dreadful, a taunt from the shadows. Sarah's heart raced, already knowing the sinister specter lay close, slithering toward them, waiting. A knock echoed through the house, deep and reverberating, a sound unlike any other. The storm raged outside, and within Sarah's shaking chest, panic stirred, promising this night was only the beginning. What waited beyond their threshold? Would she muster the strength to fight the encroaching darkness? Time was running out. A cold breath slipped through the door, and Sarah hesitated, gripped by a primal fear. The knock sounded again, sharper, almost insistent. Was it just the storm, or something worse? She turned, heart racing, but Laura stood frozen, eyes wide and glistening with terror. "Mom, don't answer it," her daughter pleaded, voice a fragile whisper that barely reached above the wind's shriek. "It's not safe out there." But another knock echoed, louder this time, resonating like an omen through the house. Against the dread clawing at her insides, Sarah found herself compelled to the door. Every instinct screamed to turn back, to lock it tight and seal away the malevolence outside. Yet her hand trembled toward the doorknob, each step an agonizing battle against the invisible force that pulled her closer. "Mom!" Laura's voice cracked, cutting through the dark. "Please!" The sound twisted inside Sarah, urging her to reconsider, but it was too late. The door creaked open, the hinges groaning like restless spirits. Desperate shadows from the porch raced into the light, stretching and twisting into grotesque shapes. Rain poured in, and mixed with the lingering chill was the suffocating scent of decay. No one stood outside. Only the intense darkness filled the threshold, an all-consuming void that invited her to step forward. "Hello?" Sarah called out, voice wavering as it slipped into the night. The wind howled a response, laced with faint whispers that danced through the rain, slipping under her skin like icy fingers. She felt a shift behind her, and Laura's soft gasp echoed in the emptiness. "Close it." The panic in her daughter's voice shattered the stillness, and suddenly, the nagging urge to look deeper into the night faded. Sarah slammed the door shut, heart pounding against her ribcage. She turned the lock, sealing her family inside from whatever terrors lurked beyond. But an unsettling stillness followed a silence that was louder than the storm. "Mom, what if it was just a trick?" Laura asked, eyes darting as shadows lingered near the corner. "They always say stop," Sarah interrupted, the rising panic igniting her protective instincts. "It's gone. It's all in your head." But deep down, beneath layers of motherly resolve, doubt flickered. Did it really disappear? A terrible clamoring rose outside, reverberating through the walls. It sounded like scratching, then faint laughs twisted into shrieks. One voice was unmistakably familiar. "Mr. Hargrove." "Sarah, are you in there? I just want to talk." She froze, her stomach dropping. The voice held an unsettling tenderness soaked in sinister undertones. He had tricked her once before with that smile, with those kind eyes. Now, it dripped with a hunger that sent icy fingers crawling up her spine. Laura inched closer, fear pulling her brows low. "What's he doing?" "I don't know," Sarah breathed, straining to hear over the thrumming pulse of her heart. The rain thrashed violently against the windows, but Hargrove's voice cut through like a knife, relentless. "Let me in, Sarah. I can help you. We can all help each other. You don't have to fear. You belong with your neighbors." The words twisted in Sarah's mind, revealing a truth she feared to face. What if the horror of despair was more than a story? What if it thrived in the places they believed were safe? As the knocking escalated, desperation clawed at her sanity. They were all out there, waiting for her to join them, to surrender. And perhaps the rain was more than just a storm. It was a gathering storm of the chained one, ready to consume any light left within these walls. Just as she grasped the reality of the situation, the floorboards creaked behind her, a shadow emerging from the depths. Sarah spun around, breath hitching as she met the glowing eyes of Laura, filled with something other than fear. What had her daughter become? A final whisper echoed through the night, "You should have let me in." And as everything fell silent, Sarah realized the haunting truth. Sometimes, the greatest horrors live beneath the familiar smiles of our neighbors. What was hiding in the darkness? The air felt thick, oppressive as Sarah stood frozen, eyeing the figure of her daughter. Laura's eyes glowed like embers in the dim light, filled with something more than just fear. Was it hunger? The shadows around her seemed alive, writhing and shifting like creatures waiting for their moment to strike. "Laura, what is happening?" Sarah's voice trembled, cracking under the weight of unshed tears. She stepped back, her instincts screaming to protect, to shield her daughter from whatever dark force lay at the edge of their lives. "Mom," Laura whispered, a smile creeping across her face that didn't quite reach her eyes. "You should join us. It's so much better on their side." Her voice was hauntingly melodic, but underneath loomed a horrific echo of something vile. "Join who? What are you talking about?" The mounting horror twisted Sarah's stomach into a tight knot, confusion mixing with the instinct of a mother desperate to save her child. The knocking grew louder, slamming against the door like a drum roll announcing a sinister performance. Hargrove's voice warped into a cacophony of laughter. They're waiting, Sarah. You can't hide forever. Close your eyes, Laura. Close your eyes. Sarah shouted, her heart racing as Laura didn't move. Instead, she stepped forward, the light shifting to illuminate her face, revealing a twisted reflection of the little girl Sarah once knew. Mommy, I can see them, Laura said, tilting her head as if studying a painting only she could see. They're so beautiful and they want us. No, Sarah yelled, shaking her head violently, willing this nightmare to end. She grabbed her daughter by the shoulders, feeling the cold seep through her skin. You have to listen to me. We have to get away from here. Before Laura could respond, the screams outside intensified, blending with the rain into a haunting symphony. The walls shuddered, trembling under the weight of something monstrous. Sarah could feel heat radiating from her daughter, as if a fire flickered just beneath the surface, threatening to ignite. Suddenly, the lights flickered, casting shadows that danced around them like tortured souls. Panic surged through Sarah, clenching her throat. She pulled Laura into an embrace, praying the warmth of a mother's love could shield against whatever darkness waited for them. The whispers escalated, turning into an insistent chant. Join us, a crash from the window shattered the moment. Shards of glass flew as a dark figure invaded their sanctuary, an indistinct shape with a hunger that drew nearer. It was cloaked in shadows, limbs contorting unnaturally as it stretched toward them. Run! Sarah shouted, her legs propelling her backward. She grabbed Laura by the wrist, yanking her mindlessly away from their former home as if threading her way out of a twisted nightmare. They stumbled through the house, breathless, the world around them distorting as the shadow crawled closer. Howling voices echoed from every corner, urging Sarah to yield, to stop fighting. The line between reality and nightmare blurred into a sinking abyss of despair. Mom? Laura's voice trembled as they reached the stairs. What if we can't get away? Don't say that. Sarah forced herself to sound brave, even as dread gnawed at her insides. We will be okay. We just have to keep moving. But they were losing ground. The darkness spread through the house, slithering beneath doors and up the walls, hungry for fresh minds to devour. Sarah cast a glance over her shoulder, catching a glimpse of the figure. It loomed, eyes burning bright, an endless void that promised pain. Mom, Laura's voice grew distant. Stay with me, Sarah screamed, pulling her daughter harder. With one desperate lunge, they reached the front door, but it wouldn't budge. It felt as though something was holding it fast, a malevolent force wrestling against her. The knocking intensified, echoing in her ears. When the door finally gave way, they tumbled into the night just as the figure lunged. Rain soaked them instantly, but Sarah pushed forward, instincts driving her, desperate for the safety of their car parked on the street. As they fled, a low growl resonated behind them, sending chills down Sarah's spine. She dared to look back just as the monstrous figure surged from the house, silhouetted against the storm, and what she saw froze her blood. The face twisted, familiar and smiling wide. Come home, it beckoned. You can't escape. Heart racing, Sarah grasped Laura's hand tight, leading her into the night. They had to get away, to find help, to break the grip of whatever evil had invaded their lives. But deep inside, Sarah felt the shadows closing in, like they had already begun to weave themselves into the very fabric of their souls. Would they ever break free from the darkness that craved them? Or would they discover that some doors, once opened, never truly close? They sprinted down the slick pavement, rain pounding on their backs like a relentless drumbeat. Each step felt heavier, their breaths sharp and desperate as they reached the car. Sarah fumbled with the key, hands trembling as she inserted it into the lock. The sound of shattering glass echoed behind them, a reminder that the nightmare was still close. Mom, open the door. Laura's eyes were wide, filled with a mix of fear and something else, something unnerving. I'm trying, baby, Sarah hissed, finally hearing the lock click. She yanked the door open, pushing Laura inside before scrambling into the driver's seat. The rain beat down like 1,000 fists, and Sarah slammed the door as she turned the ignition. Go, go, Laura shrieked, gripping her seat tightly. As the engine roared to life, Sarah glanced in the rearview mirror. The figure stood at the edge of their home, silhouetted against the ominous glow of the streetlights, watching them with an unwavering gaze. The twisted smile lingered, sending a wave of nausea through her. Mom, why are we still here? Laura's voice was small, filled with an urgency that sent shivers down Sarah's spine. I need to back out. Sarah shivered, hands gripping the steering wheel. She punched the gas, sending the tires screeching against wet concrete. The car lurched backward, terror radiating through her as she peered through the rear window. But the figure, whatever it was, had vanished, leaving only droplets of rain racing toward the earth. Her heart hammered as she shifted into drive, launching them forward onto the road. Where do we go? Laura asked, her voice shaking. Any place but here, Sarah said through clenched teeth, eyes darting to the sides as if the darkness could reach for them from within the trees. Just hold on. They drove in silence, the world outside a blur of stormy hues. It felt like they were being hunted, each raindrop a reminder of what had broken loose behind them. Every turn revealed the specters of their past, memories intertwined with shadows reminding her of moments she wished to forget. What was happening to her daughter? Was it irreversible? Sarah shook her head, forcing herself to focus. The gravel road stretched endlessly. As she pressed harder on the gas pedal, dark thoughts pressed against her mind. Hope mingled with dread. She had left the house behind, but the feeling of being watched never waned. Mom, the rearview mirror, what? Sarah snapped, heart racing, glancing back. We're not alone. Laura's voice was louder now, tinged with panic. Don't look, Sarah screamed, focusing ahead on the winding path. But she couldn't fight the pull of curiosity. A tiny glance wouldn't hurt, would it? Against her better judgment, she stole a quick look. The back seat was empty, yet a cold breeze slithered through the car, chilling her bones. Did you? A deafening crash echoed from behind, the sound vibrating like thunder. The trees along the road twisted, obscuring her view of whatever was chasing them. Sarah pressed the accelerator harder, desperation taking over. Stay down. Just stay down. But then she felt it, a presence, heavier than the rain, pulsating. It hung in the air, filling the car with an unspeakable dread. Mom! Laura shouted, pointing to the dashboard. The lights flickered dramatically, then died as they spiraled into blackness, enveloped in darkness. In that moment, Sarah's heart pounded in her ears, panic seizing her throat. Laura! Hold on. Suddenly the headlights flickered back on, illuminating the road ahead. But right in front of them stood a figure, tall and shadowy. Stop! A voice boomed, echoing through the silence, as the figure raised a hand. Sarah slammed on the brakes, her heart lurching as she barely avoided the entity. What the hell? Now the road felt like it was narrowing, pressing closer around them. The shadows curled in, suffocating. Each breath became harder as the air thickened. Mom, what do we do? Get out. Now. They scrambled, hearts racing as they opened the doors, barely thinking through the panic. But the figure was gone, only the fading echoes of its laughter remaining. In the distance, a house flickered. Dim light glowed like a solitary firefly, seemingly beckoning warmth in a world of darkness. Mom, look! Laura gasped, pulling Sarah toward the light. Maybe they can help us. But as they started to move toward it, a voice, soft and cruel, whispered through the night. You can't escape your fate. The sensation of being watched pierced through them again. Their instincts screamed, urging them to turn back. But behind them lay the wreckage of their old life, and ahead, an uncertainty filled with dread. Would the strange light offer salvation, or something far worse? As they took their next steps, the shadows seemed to pulse, eager to reclaim what they had lost. The house loomed before them, its windows flickering like dying embers. Rain continued to lash down, gathering in pools around their feet, cold and unforgiving. Every instinct told Sarah to run, yet curiosity pulled her closer. The desperate glimmer of hope was intoxicating, blurring the line between sanctuary and lure. "Mom, can we go in?" Laura whispered, eyes wide with something that felt like fear and excitement mingled together. Maybe they can help us," Sarah replied, her voice thin and wavering as uncertainty slithered back into her mind. She took a cautious step toward the door, every shadow lengthening around her. The air around them changed. The cold was sharper, as if the house itself breathed a chilling welcome. Laura hesitated, glancing back at the silver streaks of rain dancing in the light. What if there's something in there? Another flash of thunder. Another reminder that whatever chased them was still out there. "We have to take the chance." Sarah squeezed her daughter's shoulder tightly. "We can't stay in the storm." With a deep breath, she approached the door, feeling the weight of history pressing against her. She reached out, the wood feeling slick beneath her fingertips, and pushed it open. The creaking door greeted them like an ancient sigh, revealing a dimly lit foyer rich with shadows and the scent of mildew. The interior was austere. A single table stood at the center, unease curling through her as an array of unsettling photographs lined the walls. Faces stared back, haunted eyes captured in time. "Mom, I don't like this." Laura's voice shook, the tremor of fear echoing in the forgotten space. They stepped inside, the door shutting behind them with a solid thump that echoed ominously. "We need to search for someone," Sarah said, her voice a whisper that felt heavy in the silence. They moved cautiously, feet slushing through a carpet of dust and aged remnants. Every room held a deeper shadow, secrets waiting to leap out at them. Sarah peered around a corner. The flickering light cast grotesque images, and the air grew thicker as they ventured deeper. A shriek erupted from Laura, sending chills racing down Sarah's spine. "Mom, look!" She pointed to a mirror across the room, a cracked surface that reflected not only their frightened faces but something lurking just behind them. A fleeting shadow disappearing into the dark. "Turn around," Sarah shouted, heart pounding. But as she did, the room felt too still, too waiting. The corners of her vision flickered, but no one stood behind them. "It's just your imagination, is it?" Laura's voice quivered, and as she spoke, the light flickered again. A whisper snaked through the air, soft and venomous. "Stay forever, let us just find the exit," Sarah urged, gripping Laura's hand tightly. They moved toward what appeared to be another door, but it was locked. Panic seethed in Sarah's chest, squeezing tighter. Around them, a strange energy pulsed, a low hum that made it hard to think. "Mom, I feel sick," Laura said, the color draining from her face. And then the lights went out entirely. Darkness swallowed them. The cold air was suddenly suffocating, empty. Sarah's breath caught, lungs tightening. She pulled Laura close, trembling hands brushing against her daughter's hair, the only anchor in the opaque void. "Laura, are you okay?" Silence. Laura panic surged as she felt something cold brush against her back, creeping like ice. In that moment, Sarah knew they were not alone. The silence broke with a soft giggle, sweet as honey but drenched in menace. It curled around them, licking at Sarah's senses. "Did you come to play?" The voice cooed, childlike and mocking. "Get away from us!" Sarah screamed, desperation washing over her. "Too late to run now, you cannot escape your fate," the voice echoed, sinister and knowing, slithering through the dark as shadows danced with malevolence. A flicker of light returned, scarcely illuminating a figure standing at the end of the hallway, tall, gaunt, its smile grotesque. "Welcome, it's time to join the others now." Sarah trembled, fighting the urge to flee. And as they stood there, terror found its home within her heart, certainty creeping in across her mind. In that moment, a scream erupted, but it wasn't from them. It was distant, echoing softly yet joltingly familiar. "Mom, we have to go," Laura cried, panic spilling over as they stumbled back. But the darkness seemed to stretch, pulling tighter with each frantic second. They turned toward the looming figure, eyes wide with dread. Was escape possible, or were they to be claimed by the shadows? As they dashed deeper into the house, away from the laughter that lingered, one question echoed in Sarah's mind, relentless as the storm outside. Could they ever truly leave, or had they already sealed their doom? Sarah bolted down the hallway, her heart hammering like a trapped bird, and Laura close behind her, feet thudding against the creaking floorboards. The oppressive darkness swallowed them whole, the air thick and wet as if they were breathing in the house itself, its secrets, its pain. "Where do we go?" Laura gasped, panic fluttering in her voice. "Keep moving," Sarah urged, desperation clawing at her throat. They raced into the nearest room, shoving the door closed, but the sound of it slamming sent waves of dread crashing over them as if the house was angry at their intrusion. The flickering light returned for a brief moment, casting jagged shadows that twisted and danced along the walls. Bookshelves loomed around them, and the air was laced with dust that tickled their noses. Coughing, Sarah spun, scanning the room for some way out. An old window, a side door, anything. The floor was littered with torn papers and broken furniture. A strange scent, metallic and reminiscent of decay, hung in the air, scraping against her senses. "Mom, I can't breathe." Laura's voice was thin, like glass on the verge of shattering. Sweat glistened on her pale skin. "We just need to think," Sarah whispered, gripping her daughter's shoulders. A pulse of noise erupted from outside the room, a chorus of melancholic whispers sneaking below the hum of an unseen force. "It's just the wind, right?" But even as she said it, her heart churned with doubt. "Not the wind," Laura said, looking past Sarah, her eyes wide, looking at something just out of view. Sarah turned, fear gnawing at her as she faced the room. The shadows shifted once more. As if they were more than just darkness, they were alive, pulsating. "Mom, please, it's there." Laura trembled, pointing toward a corner where the shadows pooled thicker. "All right, breathe, just breathe," Sarah said, but even she felt the weight of dread pressing against her chest. The whispers grew louder, rising like a malevolent tide, drowning out her thoughts. Suddenly, the shadows unfurled, reaching towards them. An icy wind surged through the room, knocking over an old lamp that crashed to the ground, splintering into pieces. "Stay close," Sarah shouted, instinctively backing toward the door. With a burst of unexpected courage, Laura stepped forward, face filled with defiance. "Leave us alone," she screamed. The shadows recoiled for a moment, stunned by her bravery, but then swelled back with a ferocity that sent a chill crawling up Sarah's spine. They burst through the door and sprinted down the hallway, the figure now a grotesque silhouette moving just out of reach behind them. Each step felt as though the house was trying to anchor them, clawing at their heels. "Mom, it's behind us," Laura cried, dread-infused adrenaline propelling them forward. The intense energy warped Sarah's sense of time. Each second felt stretched. The space before them seemed endless, the walls narrowing as if mocking their escape. "Where's the exit?" Sarah murmured, her voice laced with panic, her eyes frantically searching for light. Just then, the low hum intensified, burgeoning into a deafening roar that drowned out everything else. And then it stopped. Silence enveloped them, thick and suffocating. "Mom!" Laura's voice trembled, echoing against the stillness as fear washed over her. Sarah turned to find her daughter frozen, lips trembling, eyes staring wide. In that moment, the floor beneath them shifted. Boards creaked with human-like intent, and the chilling giggle returned, closer now. You cannot escape. The embrace of the house tightened around them, shadows snaking forward, fingers of darkness reaching out for their warmth. "Run!" Sarah shouted, but as they turned to flee, the hallway stretched before them, twisting impossibly like an endless maze. Each door they passed loomed threateningly, waiting to swallow them whole. The corridor bent at a wrong angle, and Sarah felt reality unraveling. "There's no way out," Laura screamed, eyes darting, refusing to let despair creep in. They had to keep moving, keep fighting. Suddenly, a door burst open at the far end of the hallway, light spilling into the darkness like a beacon. It beckoned them, calling with a whisper that drowned out the echo of the laughter. "Mom, that way!" Laura shouted. But as they rushed toward the light, the chilling laughter filled the air, vibrant and malevolent. "Fate awaits you, little ones." They dashed forward, hope clinging desperately to them. But inside, dread blossomed, overshadowing everything. Were they chasing escape or merely running toward the inevitable? As they reached the threshold, a shadow dove at them. A sharp chill grazed Sarah's skin like an icy blade. She turned, heart racing, seeking the source, realizing with horror that they were not the intended escapees who had truly been running from whom. The light glistened ahead, but in the depths behind them, darkness swirled, ready to claim its next victim. Would they cross into freedom or plunge deeper into the abyss? The door swung open, revealing an unsteady flicker of light that sliced through the oppressive darkness. It was at once both a promise and a threat, hope threaded with despair. Sarah grabbed Laura's hand, pulling her forward as they rushed into the blinding glow. For a moment, everything felt suspended. Time froze around them. The air shifted lighter, free from the weight of the house that loomed close. They stumbled into what appeared to be an old library, the scent of musty pages mingling with the faint aroma of burning wood. Sunlight poured through large, stained glass windows, throwing vibrant colors across the floor. "Is it safe?" Laura whispered, her eyes wide and scanning the shelves lined with ancient books. The familiar aura of knowledge soothed, but confusion swirled. Why did they feel so drawn here? "Let us just catch our breath," Sarah murmured. But even as she spoke, unease gnawed at her. The enormous room, though inviting in its light, felt wrong. There was something lurking in the corners, an unseen weight that pressed against her chest. "Mom, look!" Laura cried, pointing at a thick tome that lay open on a wooden table, its pages flipping wildly as if caught in a hurricane of invisible winds. Dark ink swirled into shapes that made Sarah's heart skip. Faces, twisted figures, mouths open in silent screams. "Get away from that!" Sarah snapped, panic flooding her senses. But it was too late. The whispers skyrocketed into a cacophony, drowning out their thoughts, ushering in a rush of shadows that crept toward the edges of the light. "Mom, it's them!" Laura shouted, her small body trembling as she backed away. The shadows, now tangible, surged forward, their form growing more distinct. Each face twisted in agony, mouths silently screeching. "Run! We have to find another way!" Sarah yelled, her heart racing again. She tugged at Laura's wrist, but the girl remained frozen, eyes locked on the tableau unfolding before them. "Look!" Laura's hand trembled as she gestured to a mural behind the table, a vivid depiction of the house they had just fled, engulfed by a swirling storm. Figures stood at the edges, some clawing to escape as others were dragged back into the storm. It struck Sarah that the house might not just be a structure. It harbored a soul of its own with an insatiable hunger. Suddenly, the stained glass windows shattered, fragments of color raining down like cursed petals. The screams of broken glass harmonized with the whispers now pouring from the walls, filling every corner of the room with torment. "Mom, they're coming!" Laura shrieked, pointing at the darkened edges that began to swirl with grotesque hints of movement. Figures from the mural now stepped forward, emerging from the shadows themselves. A parade of souls tethered to the house, lost in torment and desperation. "Get back!" Sarah ordered, her voice breaking, her instincts screaming for her to protect her child. She yanked Laura away from the table, but as they turned, the exit where they had entered was gone, replaced by an endless wall that pulsated with life, an extension of the house's breath. "Who's trapped here?" Laura whimpered, fear pooling in her wide eyes. "Please, listen. It's just a story." Sarah's voice cracked, doubt sinking in. They had stepped into more than a mere room. This place was alive and aware, feeding off their fear. The laughter returned with renewed vigor, echoing through the library. "You'll join us," it taunted, "one way or another." With every instinct screaming to flee, they rushed toward the other side of the room, searching for any sign of escape. But a chilling realization washed over Sarah. Victims had become captors, shuffling her and Laura deeper into the gaping mouth of the house where truth and fiction twisted into a terrifying reality. As they skidded to a stop, she could feel cold fingers grazing her back, cold breath fanning against her hair. The figures drew closer, and in that moment, Sarah understood the horrifying truth: they weren't here to chase them. They were protecting something far worse. What if we're not the prey? Laura whispered, her voice trembling under the weight of fear, rising into the silent chaos. And with that, the air in the library thickened. A scream bubbling up to the surface, a warning, a promise, a question poised to shatter their fragile hope. Could there be something waiting within the heart of the darkness even more terrifying than the shadows themselves? The shadows twisted and writhed around them. It was no longer just darkness. It was alive, breathing, hungry. The laughter echoed like a sinister lullaby, wrapping around Sarah and Laura, squeezing the air from their lungs. Each face in the murky gloom seemed to leer, as if mocking their insignificance. "Mom, what are they doing?" Laura whimpered, her voice barely cutting through the cacophony of whispers. Sarah's heart raced, pounding so loudly it drowned everything else. She couldn't let fear paralyze her. "We need to find a way out," she shouted, clutching Laura's hand tightly, urging her forward. Ignoring the cold tingling that danced on the back of her neck, she stepped cautiously toward a row of darkened shelves. But the shelves loomed like sentinels, blocking their path. Behind them, the torn pages of the open tome fluttered wildly, the ink morphing into grotesque images that twisted her stomach. They were more than pictures. They felt like eyes watching, calculating. "Look behind the shelves," Laura cried suddenly, her finger pointing at a small sliver of light peeking through the cracks. It beckoned them, shimmering with a glimmer of hope. "Do you see it?" Laura's excitement battled with the dread pooling in Sarah's chest. "It might be a way out. Stay close," Sarah commanded, the authoritative tone masking her rising panic. They slipped quietly between the shelves, holding their breath as the gloom enveloped them. The whispers became louder, morphing into anguished cries. Join us," the words twisted through the air, and Sarah swayed, nearly losing her balance. "Mom!" Laura tugged on her sleeve. "We can't listen to them. Don't listen. Don't look back," Sarah replied, forcing herself to look straight ahead. The light beckoned them like a beacon through the storm. The walls were closing in around them, pulsating with an energy that felt alive and monstrous. Just before reaching the light, they stumbled into a clearing, a circular space where the dark shadows retreated momentarily. A strange altar stood in the center, adorned with strange objects, twisted branches, broken mirrors, and whispered secrets long forgotten. A chill danced around the edges, skimming Sarah's arms. Something about this place felt ancient and wrong. "What is this?" Laura gasped, eyes wide as she took in the grotesque display. "I don't know, but we need to move," Sarah replied, her breath quickening. Behind them, the shadows surged, pulsing with rage, angry they had breached this sacred space. The faces of the trapped souls clawed at the edges, their mouths opened in silent screams, pleading for escape. The sight filled Sarah with dread, pushing her instincts into overdrive. If they didn't act quickly, they might join the souls heavy with despair. Suddenly, it caught her eye, a small, rusted dagger half buried in the earth near the altar. Could it be a way to fight back? But as Sarah reached for it, a blinding light exploded from the altar, engulfing her and Laura. The laughter returned, more chaotic and manic than ever. The room began to spin. "You've come to offer a sacrifice," it echoed. "A trade for your safe passage? Or will you join them?" "Mom!" Laura screamed, clutching her tightly. Everything blurred into a whirlwind of colors and sound, colors that screamed, sounds that wept. Then the world fell silent, and for an instant, their surroundings shifted. "Where are we?" Laura whispered. The light dimmed, revealing a long-abandoned hallway lined with doors, each one ominously carved with different shapes and symbols. Sarah stepped forward, a primal urge to discover where they were, and what awaited them behind those doors. "We need to choose," she muttered, her heart in her throat as they approached the first door. A horrifying realization dawned on Sarah. Not every door would lead them forward. Some might lead to salvation, but others to far worse. "Which one, Mom?" Laura's voice trembled, breaking the eerie silence. Sarah hesitated, a cold sweat prickling her skin. Was this the final test? A choice between light and dark? The very fate of their souls hung in a delicate balance. The whispers began again, filling their ears with promises and threats alike. Choose wisely, choose the right door, with their hearts racing and fear pulsing through their veins. They faced the first door, knowing that whatever lay beyond could be their salvation or their doom. What would they find on the other side? Each option loomed a shadow of terror, but only one could lead them home. And in the depths of uncertainty, one question throbbed in Sarah's mind. Would they step into the darkness, or would they break free from the grasp of the house? The weight of choice hung heavy in the air, as they reached for the cold, brass handle. As Sarah's fingers brushed the cold, brass handle, a shiver danced down her spine. The handle felt alive, pulsating with an energy that made her stomach churn. "This is it," she whispered, sweat pooling in her palms. She could feel Laura trembling beside her, the warmth of her daughter a stark contrast to the cold air clutching at their skin. "Don't let go of me, Mom," Laura said, her voice barely audible over the whispers swirling around them. "Never," Sarah promised, forcing a steely resolve into her voice. She twisted the handle, and the door creaked open with an agonizing slowness, protesting like a wailing spirit. The door revealed a pitch-black void beyond, an inky darkness that swallowed the light from the hallway, leaving only faint hints of the terrible shadows lurking just out of sight. Taking a deep breath, Sarah stepped forward, dragging Laura with her. The door slammed shut behind them, sealing their fate. The darkness pressed in, a living thing, wrapping around them like a sinister snake. "Mom!" Laura squeaked, panic rising in her voice. "It's okay, just hold my hand tight," Sarah said, her heart racing. They stepped forward gingerly, each movement echoing louder than a heartbeat in the stifling silence. Suddenly, a flicker of ghostly light illuminated the room, revealing walls covered in images of those who had come before them. Faces of despair twisted in agony, eyes wide and mouths open in silent horror. Sarah recoiled, her breath catching in her throat. It was a gallery of the damned, echoes of souls forever trapped, begging for release. "We have to keep moving," Laura cried, breaking the spell of horror that held Sarah momentarily. They pressed on, the flickering light keeping the darkness at bay for just a moment longer in front of them. A second door appeared, this one adorned with jagged symbols that whispered of ancient curses. The air crackled with electricity, and a chilling whisper circled them. "Choose, choose." The voice slithered around them like smoke, seductive but menacing. "What do we do, Mom?" Laura's voice was strained, the panic rising beneath her words. "Stay with me. Let us try this door," Sarah pointed, her gaze firming on the ominous shapes carved into the wood. "We don't have a choice." But the words tasted bitter on her tongue, the implication of their situation sinking in as they approached again. The door jiggled from within, as if something or someone was waiting just on the other side, eager to break through. The whispers intensified, urging them to turn back, pleading for their return to the safety of the shadows. Just a little farther. The door flung open before Sarah could reach for the handle, revealing a corridor that extended into utter darkness. No light, no sound, just a vast emptiness that threatened to swallow them whole. "Mom, I don't like this," Laura whimpered, her voice trembling with each word. "I know, sweetheart, but we have to find out what's at the end. Maybe it's the way out." As they stepped beyond the threshold, the door slammed shut behind them with a thunderous boom. The air thickened, suffocating them. It pressed against their chests like a weight. The darkness grew deeper, and with it, a low growl rumbled from the depths of the void, sending a jolt of fear coursing through Sarah's veins. "Please help us," a voice echoed from the darkness, laden with despair. It was a voice filled with sorrow and loss, pulling at the threads of Sarah's will. Her resolve began to falter, doubt creeping in. "Mom, do you hear that?" Laura's voice was tight with fear, her grip tightening on Sarah's hand. "Yes, but we can't listen to it," Sarah insisted, steeling herself against the pull of the voice. The corridor twisted ahead, faintly illuminated by shadows that danced across the walls, resembling figures, a parade of lost souls, urging them to turn back. "Let us keep going." The words were a whisper of courage, as they pushed forward into the unknown. Aware that the shadows were now inching closer, hungry, they approached a heavy, wrought iron gate standing at the corridor's end, draped with gnarly vines, twisted like the nightmares that haunted their dreams. With trembling hands, Sarah reached out, preparing to push it open, when the voices escalated into a furious roar, drowning her resolve. Join us, and then they were there, the faces of the damned, pressing through the bars, reaching, clawing. "Mom!" Laura screamed, eyes wide as terror gripped her. Just as Sarah moved to pull her away, the gate swung open violently on its own, revealing an expanse of nothingness. The laughter returned, louder and more maniacal. With a final glance back at the souls behind them, Sarah felt the rush as the darkness enveloped them whole. What awaited them on the other side? As they stepped into the void, the gate slammed shut with a cacophony, leaving only silence behind. But in that silence, a new, deeper whisper started to cry, "Will you succumb, or will you fight?" The air crackled with anticipation as the two of them hovered at the precipice of the unknown, teetering on the edge of despair. What awaited them next? A choice they could never imagine. The darkness was suffocating, wrapping around them like a heavy cloak. Sarah's heart raced with a fearful rhythm as she clutched Laura's hand, who trembled beside her. She could feel the heat emanating from her daughter, but it felt foreign, haunted even. "Stay close," she whispered, forcing herself to step forward into the inky abyss. Suddenly, a chilling wind whirled around them, carrying whispers that clawed at Sarah's mind. "You won't escape, your fate is already woven into the shadows," it hissed. Every word felt like ice, cutting through her resolve. Panic began to rise, but she pushed it back, guiding Laura forward through the swirling void. Each step felt heavier than the last. Shadows flickered in her peripheral vision, grasping for them with icy fingers. "Mom, I can't take it," Laura gasped, her voice small and terrified. "We have to keep moving," Sarah urged, but even as she said it, doubt gnawed at her insides. What if they weren't meant to escape? Ahead loomed a shadowy figure, hazy and distorted, delivering sharp chills down Sarah's spine. She halted and instinctively shielded her daughter with her body. "Who's there?" she called out, her voice steadier than she felt. The figure shuddered, then began to shift, morphing into faces she recognized, neighbors, friends, each one twisted with a look of desperation. "Help us, you must join us," they crooned, their voices layered with sorrow. Laura gasped, eyes growing wide as her grip tightened around Sarah's hand. "No!" Sarah shouted, the power of love igniting a spark within her. "We're not joining you." The shadows recoiled momentarily, and in that split second of hesitation, she seized an opportunity to move forward. "Mom, where are we going?" Laura's voice trembled in the oppressive silence, but Sarah could only focus on the flickering light that began to pulse ahead. "Trust me," she whispered, propelling them onward. The light grew brighter, revealing a door at the end of the corridor, unmistakably ajar, warm and inviting. Relief washed over her, but dread also pooled in her stomach. "Is it a trap?" Laura asked, uncertainty tainting her voice. "Maybe, but it's better than being here," Sarah replied, and together they rushed toward the door. As they stepped through, a burst of warmth enveloped them, almost overwhelming after the chill. They stumbled into a sunlit room filled with flowers and thick, green vines cascading from the ceiling, a stark contrast to the oppressive darkness that had just held them captive. But within the beauty, an unsettling sense of foreboding lingered like a dark cloud. "Mom, look!" Laura cried, pointing to a mirrored wall at the far side of the room. Their reflections were distorted, their faces twisted in pain and yearning. But the reflections began to change, morphing into the shadowy figures of the previous room, a tangible reminder of the horrors they had just escaped. "They're still here," Sarah gasped, panic rising once more. She turned, but the door had vanished, replaced by an endless cascade of flowers that were wilting before her eyes. "We need to get out. Where do we go?" Laura's voice cracked, and Sarah's heart ached. She felt the weight of despair creeping in like the shadows that had haunted them moments ago. Suddenly, A familiar voice emerged from the blooming chaos. "You can't leave, you have to choose." It was Mr. Hargrove's voice, dripping with the same sinister edge that had terrified her before. "Leave my daughter alone." Sarah screamed, her protective instincts igniting. The flowers writhed, twisting into dark vines that reached for them hungrily. "Join us or face the darkness," the voice taunted. "No," Sarah forbade, determination surging through her. "I will not give in. We're stronger than any darkness." In that moment, something deep within her stirred, a conviction that radiated warmth, pushing back against the creeping despair. Laura, sensing it too, squeezed her mother's hand fiercely. "Just hold on," Sarah said fiercely, stepping forward with her daughter. Fire ignited in their hearts. "We choose to fight." With renewed strength they pushed against the waves of darkness. The room trembled, shadows flickered, and whispers turned to wails. But they pressed onward, facing the mirror. "Enough!" Sarah shouted, and together they struck the mirror with their fists. The surface shattered like glass, colorful shards exploding outward, releasing a surge of radiant light. In seconds, the flower-filled room dissolved, and they fell into a blinding luminescence, both terrified and exhilarated. With one final cry of defiance, Sarah felt a pulse of freedom echo in her chest. The storm had subsided. No rain, no darkness. They burst through to daylight, collapsing onto solid ground. They lay there, gasping. The neighborhood spread before them, untouched and vibrant. Familiar laughter echoed, and warmth wrapped around them like a blanket. "Mom, we're home!" Laura exclaimed, joy spilling from her voice. Sarah closed her eyes, relief flooding her system. They had fought their way through the darkness, not only for survival but for a reconnection to life itself. The shadows, those old ghosts of despair, were behind them now. "Always, sweetheart, always," she whispered, knowing the fight against darkness would continue. But they would face it together. In that moment of light, of love, Sarah vowed to protect her daughter fiercely. Nothing would unseat them from their precious lives again. The sun shone brightly above, and they breathed in the fresh air, hearts steady with hope. And just like that, overshadowing the chaos of the past, they stepped forward into an even brighter tomorrow. Now that you've joined Sarah and Laura on their chilling journey and witnessed their intense fight against darkness, don't you want to stay connected? You need to subscribe now to our channel. This is the moment to show your support. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and help us grow. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about their harrowing escape. And for heaven's sake, instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share. Join us for even more thrilling stories and exclusive content.